Hey, good morning. This is Dr. Levi with your show, The Dr. Levi Show. I want to introduce to you today an extraordinary woman who has had extraordinary challenges, and thereby she's had an extraordinary life. And we're grateful to have her on the show today with us. Her name is Ingez Rameau. So welcome to the show, Ingez. Very glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your life, because you were born in Germany, and from Germany you were placed in Estonia. Now, how did you get from... Let's talk about how this all happened, because your life is very intense.
Well, excuse me, my mother fled the Russians.
Yes.
But before I even go into that, I just want to kind of make a statement about the whole, you were talking a little bit about World War II.
Yes.
And when most people think of the Holocaust, they think of the concentration camps,
Yes.
that the ones that were going on in Germany, which were absolutely horrendous.
Of
but
course.
there was a second Holocaust
Right.
that went on during the same time, and it was Stalin's Holocaust.
Absolutely.
And so when he started taking over and taking over a lot of the North European and Eastern European countries,
Yes.
it was an extermination of
Yes,
the
it was.
population, and sending them to Siberia.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't either remember it or don't know about
Right.
it. And so when my mother fled Estonia, she fled it because of the communist takeover.
Yes. Now, when she fled Estonia, it was simply you, or do you have brothers and sisters?
Well, she was pregnant with me. And she didn't know it at the time. And there's another twist here.
Yes.
I had always wanted to know who my father was, and my mother would not talk about it.
Yes.
And on her deathbed in 1979, I took my heart in my hands and I
Yes.
said, please, please tell me about my father.
Right.
And she looked me straight in the eye and she told me who he was.
Yes.
And I so understood at that moment why she was reluctant in telling me about him. Because he was stationed in Estonia and he was an SS officer.
Was he really?
And so what happened was the Germans, while they were doing their own Holocaust in Germany,
Yes.
were stationed in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And a lot of Estonians were looking at them as liberators because they were helping Stalin. They were pushing Stalin back.
Yes. Yes.
They were helping the Estonians to not to be sent to Siberia. And so my mother had no idea what the Holocaust was, because nobody really knew about the Holocaust in Germany. I mean, what went on
Yes.
until after the war was over.
Right.
So my father told my mother she had to get out of Estonia because Stalin was closing the borders. It was September 1944. And she tried to get her mother and father and her 5 brothers to come with her.
Yes.
But they didn't see the imminent danger.
They did not.
No. And so in the middle of September, she had about 2 weeks left to flee. She packed her 2 suitcases, took the address. She didn't speak German very well, and she wasn't very familiar with Germany. She took the address, got on a passenger train. It was kind of like a cattle train,
Yes.
They were putting all the people there. And it was about a 3 to 4 day trek to Bremerhaven in Germany.
She's a pretty brave lady to do that by
She
herself.
was pretty brave.
Yes.
Very brave. And I think some of that tenacity I probably inherited
Absolutely.
from my mother. Yes,
Absolutely.
Yes, because what she had to survive. So when she arrived in Bremerhaven, now mind you, the baggages were taken into another train.
Yes.
She got to Bremerhaven. The whole train station had been bombed by Allied bombs.
Wow.
She never found her suitcases, never found the address, and never found my father.
Never did.
Never did.
Huh.
So in the meantime, she had no idea what to do, and
Yes.
here were all these refugees coming from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, the Ukraine, even from Russia.
Yeah, well, I
there were
believe
many
that.
Russians who
Right.
wanted to get out.
Right.
And the German government and the Allies didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
So they constructed these camps.
These were displacement camps.
These were displaced persons camps,
Right.
yes, with barbed wire fences. In fact, I know that went into one camp called Wildflecken, which was called the wild place. It happened to be one of Hitler's army barracks.
Yes.
They used that as a DP camp. And relief organizations were coming in, and they expected 2,000 people in that camp. And they found 20,000 people crammed into conditions, and around the barbed wire fences were surrounding the camps, and we couldn't leave, and so on. And I was finally born a month after the war was over, in June of 1945, in Nuremberg, in one of those camps.
You were born in a displaced person's camp.
In a displaced persons camps, yes. And so that was my upbringing, basically, because those camps went on for, I think about 1952 is when they dispersed, and we were moved into low-income housing. It was just...
So you're there for several years.
I was there for 7 years, yes. And my brother was born in one of them.
That's a pretty amazing story.
Yes.
It really is.
So we didn't, we had to survive. And what
was the day-to-day like there? Because it's not like you can just run to the market and buy food, get clothes, or go to school. What was the day-to-day living like in that type of traumatic environment?
Well, you have to understand one thing. When you're brought up in a particular environment, it doesn't matter whether you're disenfranchised or what happens.
Right.
You feel the energy around you. You know something's not quite right because you hear the adults talking about you. But you as a child don't know any better.
Right. Because all you know is what you see and have access to.
That's all you know.
Right.
I do know that my mother had to work, and she left me with babysitters a lot, which was not the best thing.
Of course.
I do know that there was an awful lot of alcoholism. A lot of people were out of work. My mother worked outside of the camp. They allowed her out from time to time to get to clean houses or office buildings.
Yes.
And so I watched her struggle, just trying to survive from a day-to-day basis. And I always remember not wanting to be too much of a burden on her. So whatever happened to me, I didn't really like to talk about it to her.
Right. Because you wanted her to have a sense of contentment, even though things were tough for you internally. You didn't share them with her. I
didn't share them because some of the things that happened, and now remember, there's poverty, there is... children's childhood is usually are stolen in these kinds of situations. And in my case, because I was and then the other thing also you have to understand, there was no stability really, because we were moved from camp to camp every few months. So there was no way for us to make any long-lasting friends. So each time we got into a new camp, my mother had to get reacquainted with people and hope that somebody would be there to look after me.
Yes.
And it set up a tremendous amount of unstableness for me, emotionally, never knowing what was going to hit us, when we were going to be moved.
That's a lot of instability. You just don't know.
A lot of instability.
You just don't know.
Yeah. And who was going to look after me?
Right.
And of course, as a child, you always look for love and attention,
of course,
and being accepted and so on. And what happens, I think, when society breaks down, when there's a lot of disenfranchisement going on, a lot of predation happens.
Of course.
And so that happened to me also on a continuous basis. But it was disguised with babysitters as love and affection. And so the first thing, of course, that happens is you become secretive because there's so much shame.
Right. Right.
That is surrounded by it. And you feel that you're being judged.
Right. That
there was something that you did wrong. And so you have to carry the burden of keeping silent. Right. And that was one of my tools.
And with silence and secrets, it's never a good thing. Because it just breeds more internal disenfranchisement.
Exactly.
You disconnect from yourself.
That's exactly right. Exactly. So you have a double whammy, basically.
Right.
Not only do you it's actually three things. Not only do you feel, are you assaulted by predation, but predators, but you're also assaulted by society, pointing the finger. And thirdly, as you said, you disenfranchise yourself internally.
Absolutely.
And so it's a huge burden for a child. I mean, when your childhood is stolen and these things are introduced to you out of sequence, basically, at the ages of 4, 5, and 6, and you can't, all you know is like, oh, I had a response that felt good. Now people are telling me it shouldn't have felt good. Oh, I did something wrong.
Right. That's the big paradigm there. It may feel good, but then still you're being taken advantage of because these are predators.
Absolutely.
So it's not simply a rape of your body, it's a rape of your mind and it's a rape of your spirit because all of that they try to disengage you from to make you believe them.
Exactly.
It's really a very unfortunate thing with many of us, like myself, who have talked to so many people who have gone through extraordinary abuses, abuses, where even in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, they're still trying to integrate themselves back as a whole person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the first tool, of course, is secrecy, but then you know that's not the answer. Never the answer. And so you start to try all sorts of different things. The first, of course, is to suppress the feelings that are going to come up.
Right.
Oh, no, that's not good, you know. And then, for me, the Civil War, basically the internal Civil War,
yes,
became so great that I said, I have to do something.
Right.
I have to do something different. What can I do to feel better? Not to feel so depressed.
Right.
Not to feel suppressed anger.
Absolutely.
My creativity, everything was, of course, stifled.
How could it not be?
Yeah.
And think about this. If you felt as stifled, think how your mother felt and think about what she never expressed to you.
Absolutely.
Or you were holding on to these things.
Absolutely.
Imagine what she was holding on
Absolutely.
to that she could not share with the child.
Absolutely.
Her child.
Yeah, exactly, because it was very shameful for her to have been involved, first of all, out of wedlock, and secondly, with a Nazi soldier. When I first heard about it, I was blown away.
Of course.
Because for 34 years of my life, you know, I said, I'm an Estonian.
Right.
And I remember when we first had moved to Toronto, Canada in 1961.
Yes.
The Canadian government had had a program in 1960 and 1961 to help 200 families each year to come to Canada.
Yes.
Then, of course, you had to pay back the loan. So we were one of the ones in
That had to try.
1961.
That's fantastic. Well, we're going to be right back with Ingez. We're going to be talking more about her story and her life. As you can tell, I'm actually just fascinated by her. Her energy is just overwhelmingly good. So we'll be right back in about 90 seconds with Ingez, so don't go far. This is Dr. Levi. Everybody, welcome back. This is your host. This is Dr. Levi with the Dr. Levi Show. We're here this morning with Ingez Rameau. We're talking about her life in displaced persons camp during World War II, post-World War II, I should say. And we're talking about how her family, her mother, her brother, herself, how they traveled within these displaced persons camps, and how she literally grew up. The first 7 years of her life were there. So I think it's amazing that your family actually made it to Toronto.
Well, exactly, and my mother was always trying to look for a better life for us.
Yes.
And actually what happened in 1950, she had applied to come to California. But the waiting list was usually about 2 years, sometimes even 3 years long.
So quite a long time.
A long time. And in the meantime, of course, people married,
of course,
children were born, and so it happened with my mother. She met my stepfather, and my brother was born in 1951. So when the papers came through, that was it.
Done.
Now she was looking for another way. And then in 1960 and 61, the Canadian government, she got wind about that. I don't know how. The Canadian government was sponsoring 200 people per year, and she applied and we were accepted, so we came to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And
how long did you live in Toronto?
I lived in Toronto until 1960, for 4 years.
Okay.
And then we made contact with another woman an Estonian woman who had been living in one of the camps in Germany, and she had emigrated in 1951
really? To
New York. So she sponsored me to New York.
That's fantastic.
And I was able to come, I remember, to me, when I was a child in Germany, I was thinking of America, the land of milk and honey.
Right.
And there was gold and on the streets and fairies everywhere, and
right.
I just
couldn't
enchanted.
Wait.
It was enchanted. I couldn't wait to see all that.
Right.
You know, it was just, I had this dream about it, and of course that it didn't happen, you know, but it has been enchanting for me on so many other ways.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then your life in New York, how did you get into the theater there in New York City?
Well, I had dreamed about always wanting to be an actress. I always wanted to share.
Yes.
Something, I wanted to make a difference. So I started acting classes, and I did some television.
Yes.
And a few movies there and so on. And I also modeled. They told me I had the look, and I never thought about that.
Yes.
So I tried that for a while.
Yes.
Then I married, and my ex-husband and we moved to Los Angeles. Divorced, because that was one of the things also that didn't work, because
yes.
I was looking for the wrong thing for the wrong reason.
I understand.
And finally, when I left my ex-husband, I said, I have to, well, in the meantime, you know, I was reading and I got into spirituality, palm readers, psychics, everybody trying to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Of course, working out. I started in 1969. I started Pilates in New York, actually with Joe Pilates in his studio. That changed my life. And so when I was here and I decided after my divorce, I have to really look at myself and do something about myself.
So divorce was really a wake-up call for you to do something for you.
It was to do something for me, that I wanted to see what it was about me that chose a particular type of a man.
Yes.
Or a particular type of a circumstance.
Yes.
And I, for some reason, said, I don't want to repeat it. So let me look at myself.
Right, because every experience we have with the person is, again, as my mother would say, for a reason, a season, a lesson, or a blessing. It's one of those four.
Absolutely.
So if we don't see why we're doing those same things, we repeat the same pattern over and over.
Exactly. And you think you've gone with somebody else. They may look different. They may have a different eye color, dark hair or blonde hair, or physique is different. But when you really get right down to it, the stripes within are the same.
Exactly right. Same core person.
Same core person that you keep on.
Right. Just
choosing.
different name, different ethnicity, different look. Right. Same person.
Exactly. And I just felt this urge to know who I really was. Right. Not to have this civil war going on inside. It just kept on coming up, and I tried to suppress it and coming up. And
it's like a fire burning within you.
It's like a fire, yes. And that's the name of my play.
Absolutely,
it's called Burn.
Yes.
But in any case, so the major change that happened in my life was when I met a man who, I don't like to call him a therapist because he's so much more. He likes to call himself an applied philosopher.
Yes.
But he began to introduce me to myself. Right. And it was through him and many of the other things that I have done that I finally then met my current husband in 1979. And of course, that wasn't an easy road either in the beginning because I was still used to a particular type of a relationship.
Person, yes.
And so, it caused friction. But kudos to him.
Right. Well, just think how wonderful. We married 35
kudos
years.
To him, I must say, for doing his own work.
Right.
Right. And so the healing began.
Yes.
And it's a continual thing.
And do you find that same healing with doing the play? Let's talk about the play also, because I think the play has such incredible roots of letting people know who you really are.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, Dr. Levi, when I began, because I had been told constantly I should write. Yes. And I said, I'm not a writer.
Nice.
I'm not a writer. So I did. And I remember as the opening of the show came, I was so nervous because, I had started to talk about my secrets.
Right.
With therapists and friends and so on. But now I was going to be on stage.
Absolutely.
Just by myself for 90 minutes, blabbing, talking, and revealing such intimate things that I still, of course, feel are very, could be shameful. You know what I mean?
They're very deep.
They're very deep. So I said, okay, that's it. I prepared myself to how to go on in case people walked out.
Yes.
Because I felt that I would offend. That what I was saying, what I was talking about, would be offensive. And that people would just walk out. So I prepared myself for that. So as not to get flustered, yes. I could not believe it. It really touches me to this day. At the end of each show, I had people waiting for me of all types. Men, women, young, old. They came to thank me for telling their story.
Absolutely. Because your story is their story, because we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
We're all interconnected in this wonderful weave and wave of humanity. We're together.
And that's what it is. And really, the message, I think, is do not keep secrets.
Absolutely.
Know that freezes you into victimhood.
Yes, it does.
And so then after that, a couple of people told me, you have to write the book. And again, I said, I'm
not a writer. Surprise.
And I thought about it, and so that's now what I'm I'm putting a lot of my concentration on finishing that and then doing the play and the book at the same time.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah. Tell us more about the play. What's on the horizon for the play right now?
Well, at the moment, I don't have it booked anywhere at all because it's a challenge to do the kind of a book that I want to do, because it is not a light matter. I don't want to. It's not cooking 101.
No, it's not. This is a very revealing memoir.
Very revealing.
Inner, most intimate thoughts and parts of your life. It's not a joke.
Yeah. It's the thoughts as well as my reactions to things and all of that stuff that is twisted in shame. You know. Yes. So I haven't really set a date for the play at all right now. Right. I want to finish the book, and I am in the midst of it, and hope to finish it fairly soon. We will see, you know, and either self-publish it or find somebody, you know. It will reveal itself.
I want to tell you right now, don't worry, it'll reveal itself, because that's where any book, I feel like they're downloaded within us and that they have to come forth. And I also think we don't have to worry about a time. The book just comes when it comes.
Exactly, yeah.
But you find the book to be very cathartic, just writing. Does that seem to be a healing process for you?
Very much so. And interestingly enough, even more so than the play. Really? Because you see what happened in the play, it was almost like the first stage. Here I was, and the audience had the... they were able to see me up on stage, see my emotions. My husband did the music. He's a musician. See the lighting, the costumes, and so on. And so they have a visceral kind of an experience.
Right, it's tangible.
It's tangible, exactly. To write the book, I have to translate all of that onto the page.
Absolutely.
With adjectives.
All those emotions, all
of
those scenes, all those smells.
Exactly.
Now they have to come alive by words.
Exactly.
It's not a joke.
Exactly. And so now, that is a whole different layer.
Yes, it is.
Of the onion.
Yes,
completely different, and goes deeper. And yes, definitely, it's like, oh no, what am I doing here?
But the great thing is, as you peel all those layers back, you reveal greater and more authenticity about your life story. It's just wonderful.
I hope so.
What's your website?
My website is www.ingezrameau.com.
And that's spelled INGEZRAMEAU.
That's correct.
What about Facebook and Twitter? Do you have any of that?
I don't have Twitter.
You have Facebook, though.
I'm so old.
That's okay. No, you're not. No, you're not. You have Facebook?
I haven't gone into Twitter yet. Well, I have I am on Facebook.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
We'll get that through your website.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes.
I just want to say what a pleasure to have Ingez here with us today. An extraordinary woman with an amazing story. And just imagine how she's going to touch our lives more with her revealing memoir about her life, about her emotions, and about her growth as this great, wonderful, spiritual woman that she is. I just want to thank you for being on the show. You're amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
I really
You'll be
appreciate
back. We'll have you back.
I hope so. Thank you very much.
Well, this is Dr. Levi with your show, The Dr. Levi Show. Remember, the word of the week is activation. And remember, activate your life. Activate more forgiveness, more love, more compassion. Be you. You take you wherever you go. Bye.